Hi, how are you? All right, so this week I wanted to talk about this book that we both read called The Celestine Prophecy. Who's it by?
By James Redfield. I'm still in the process of reading not because I read slow, but because I've been busy doing other stuff.
The nigga's been busy. That's okay. Everybody, we had to take our own time to do shit. We're technically recording this 2 days late, and I didn't edit the last episode at all. So niggas be busy.
Need to be edited though.
Point is, niggas be busy. Listen, we just had shit to take care of. It is what it is.
Right.
But yeah, so today we're gonna break it into chunks to give Khairah some time to read it and digest it and blah blah blah. Because I read it by myself and I was like, oh, I don't have anybody to spit about this with, so that's why I gave her the book in the first place. So now I'm excited to finally be able to have that conversation.
It was definitely funny because she had tried to get me to read it like a month before I actually started reading it, maybe 2 months before. And I was like, yeah, I'll read it. And then I picked it up and then put it back down and didn't read. Mm-hmm. And once I got into it, I couldn't put it down. I got through maybe 3 chapters in one sitting. In one day. And so I was like, oh my god, it's so good. And she was like, see, I was trying to tell you. So yeah, we figured we would be expressive in our talk with you.
Woo.
So
yeah, man. All right, so I summarized the first insight as transformation. Becoming aware / conscious of the experience of coincidences and a profound sense of restlessness that pervade our thoughts and actions, especially in regards to relationships or other people. So if that sentence doesn't trip you out, just because we completely switch vibes, I feel like, but to give you a little bit of a hint about what the book is about, I was specifically wanted to read that first just to set the mood, but it's about a man who goes through a spiritual journey that's partnered with a physical journey. You know what I mean? And I'll be honest, I don't know how much fabrication there is in his story, but it's still on a spiritual fiction. Yes. I'm not sure how much of it is a true event, you know what I mean? But the point is still that it has spiritual messages that I think are important.
Definitely. I mean, it's I hate to devalue or debunk some of people's journeys and what they say. And he doesn't necessarily how do you categorize the book in if it's historical fiction, nonfiction, or anything like that. Typically books do that so you know what it is. And honestly, I probably should have searched it up, so I'll do that next time I let you know. But still, even when you do nonfiction, let me get into my editor phase. When you do nonfiction, a lot of times, especially if you're trying to tell a story, you do it creatively. And when you do creative nonfiction, unless you're just doing straight history, you take elements from creative writing and you have liberties to fabricate or blow stuff up here and there. And the reader knows to take the message to heart, not necessarily the whole entire story, because realistically, even when we tell a story that happens, there's always going to be a perspective that's going to change. My perspective of how a situation happened will be completely different from the next person, and we experience the same thing. And so with that being said, it's always told from your own point of view, so there's always going to be some non-truths in that, no matter how objective you try to be. Okay.
All right, cool. Brief little drop of knowledge right there. Right. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't want to describe too much of the book itself because that's not technically, we're not doing the book review. You know what I mean? But the setting around him discovering the first insight is he gets a call from one of his friends that he hasn't spoken to in a long time. This is someone that he connected with, and it's a woman, but they never had that kind of relationship. They just connected and never got to make anything of it. She all of a sudden comes back, and she's telling him about this manuscript that she heard about while she was in Peru. And he's kind of hesitant, because it sounds sketchy as hell. She heard it from some priest that was like, oh, come speak to me at my house,
and then
never showed up. You know what I mean? A bunch of stuff like that, but it kept, I want to say niggling, but I feel like I shouldn't say that online. Just, you know what I mean? Yeah, no. But it kept, it was itching at the back of her mind. God, I hate that word. Anyway, it was itching at the back of her mind. And she was like, you know what?
Gnawing at the back of her mind?
Gnawing. There you go. Look at this. The editor. Yeah,
English
man.
me.
Yeah, so it was gnawing at the back of her mind, and she was like, you know what? I'll just call him, and I'll tell him about it, and we'll just see what goes on from there. So they agree to meet up at a restaurant, and blah, blah, blah. She's flying in just before their meeting, so basically going straight from the airport to the restaurant, and her bags get stolen when she lands. And they're like, that's crazy. Or, like, you know, when she gets in the restaurant, they call the police or whatever, and they're like, what a coincidence, what happened, blah, blah, blah. So then a little bit later there, she's telling him about what the first insight is. And like I said, it's basically just becoming aware of coincidences and, like, a profound, because everybody feels restless. It's not necessarily just
coincidences, but they describe it in the book as restlessness. So, like, being aware of people, like...
Well, yeah, that's what I was just about to say. Yep, and it's the awareness of coincidences and a profound sense of restlessness. So, like, the restlessness itself, to be able to even make you aware of those things continually happen. And a bunch of people on Twitter are like, oh, I keep seeing 555 and 111 and, like, you know, that kind of shit. But, like, real life, it could be a family member's birthday or a significant date in your life or some shit like that just keeps popping up. And at first it's like, oh, wow, that's cool. That's cool. And then you start to notice it too much. You know what I'm saying? But then think about the circumstances that it showed up in. Like, what was going on that they might have, you know, needed to show you a coincidence. Anyway, yeah, but you have to be in a state of restlessness in the first place to even be aware of that kind of shit going on.
That sums it up pretty much. It was just, I and myself get restless a lot with a lot of stuff, and it's happened more recently since my grandfather has passed, which technically that wasn't too recent, but being more aware of that stuff, and realistically, honestly, I noticed it before, but not so much until I met Kaylyn, because she was actually telling me about it. I was like, yeah, I just keep seeing these numbers. And there would be specific stuff that we would do, or my mom was watching Long Island Medium or whatever. But there were some good things that came out of that. And she was like, you know, when you hear certain songs that play on the radio that's not mainstream for that time, and it just comes on randomly, or you're in a store and a song starts playing. I actually do have a side story I want to tell really quick after I say this, but she said that is a sign from someone, you know, whether they're giving you comfort or something, that's from your spiritual guides. And so with that being said, it reminded me of this one time, there was a song, what's the name of the song? Stand By Me. I don't remember who sings it. But everybody knows the song. Darling, stand. And we were in this, if you're from Detroit and you're from the west side of Detroit, off 7 Mile, you know Apollo. And typically we had gone to that store in years. But there was one time it was just close, we went, and we were about to check out. And that song came on. And there's some parts of the song that's not very, it's kind of a peppy song, but not really. And when the song came on, it just seemed like dreary and dragging. We both looked at each other and we was like, we gotta go. And we just left. And that song isn't played in circulation like that. So there would have been no reason for that. So you have to pay attention to those things. And so with that being said, we were kind of aware of it before, but I started noticing it more after I was enlightened by Kaylyn and the Unity group that we were part of, and so that's pretty much all I had to add to that.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I have a quote. I blanked out for a second. I have a quote from page 7. We are experiencing these mysterious coincidences, and even though we don't understand them yet, we know they're real. So I think that really ties into what you were just saying, because you weren't necessarily paying attention to it, but you were still kind of aware of them happening. Yeah. And, you know, they're real. And one of my favorite things about the way that he describes the spiritual journey is that it kind of, like, real life is never gonna like super easily next step into itself like that, but these transitions flow so well for me in the book. Yeah, I like this a lot. I don't know how I'm not a storyteller. I just like to talk, so I don't know how to transition this properly at all. But the second insight is about the full contextualizing of history. So consider the entirety of human evolution and how it led up to where we are now, technologically, spiritually, and emotionally.
And I can admit with this one, I had a hard time really understanding it, because it kind of is so, it seems like it kind of just is supposed to be with the first one, so much so that it doesn't make sense for it to be separate in my mind.
Okay, interesting.
So then I have a hard time actually remembering what the second insight is, because I was like, oh, well, yeah, that goes with
That's
that.
one of my favorites. That's so wild that you're saying that. But see, that goes in us where I know we had similar personality things, but we are still, you know, we think differently at the end of the day, and I value that so much. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry,
it would be boring if we had too much alike.
Yeah, way. God.
We would get tired of each other, honestly.
Honest
like,
to God.
Look, this ain't gonna work. No, but yeah, we do have differences, and that makes it really interesting. And that's why this talk is interesting. But the second one definitely is the hardest for me to remember. I constantly have to go back to be like, okay, what is the second insight? And because it's not really described in my mind just plainly like, oh, like the first one, restlessness. This one doesn't just have like a one word, this is what it is. And so that makes it hard. And then the way that it's told in the story is he's on a plane and he meets this guy because he's experiencing the insights as it comes.
And he decides to go to Peru for himself. Yep.
And so he just happens to meet this guy who he overhears something, and he's like, overhear him talking about the manuscript, and he's like, oh, can I talk to you about this? And they end up talking about it, and he ends up giving him information about what the second insight is, but he doesn't directly tell him what it is. He says, in order for you to understand, you have to experience it. So I have to tell you a story.
Yeah.
And so he does that. And that kind of took me out a little bit, because I was like, I want to know what it is first.
That's so interesting. I was like, that's what really sunk me into reading the book.
That one didn't get me. When he left the plane or got off the plane, and the scene that happened after that with showing the intensity of how important because what happens afterwards is that it becomes...
Wait. No spoilers, because we're getting there. I was going to say, we'll get there. No spoilers.
So anyway, it's really... I spoil a lot. So there's a lot of intense scenes that happen after that, and that kind of just drew me in. A lot of stuff in the first insight drew me in a lot, because I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, that's really cool. And so that kept me going. And then the second one, I kind of had to, when he was going through telling the story, I was having a hard time relating to it. So then that's what kind of took me out a little bit. But then there was little things that would just drag me back into it.
Okay.
And I think it's because, although realistically, when they were trying to explain that, you know, you have to take the context of history with it, when he got to the end of explaining it, that's where I really understood it more.
Okay.
And I liked it.
Yeah.
But I still forget it.
Yeah, man. Look, so I was amazed by that one, because I loved history. That was one of my favorite classes when I was in high school. See, there we go. Different paths. She's super smart, but I feel like she's also a little impatient. And history is a slow class. Like, for real, that's all, but that also means the homework is really just remembering shit that happened. And I'm good at that. I'm not good at writing shit down. Please don't ask me to take a test. But I remember. You know, come on now. Anyway, point was, so he's describing to him, not necessarily like from caveman times and up, but he's describing, so when the world was new, basically people turned to religion for an explanation for why things were happening, because that's the natural thing to do. You have Greek mythology, you have Egyptian mythology, you have even Native American mythology, but all of those things have all the same components. They have something that controls how harsh the sun is today, or the rain, water, like different types of water, you know what I'm saying? That's why that fascinated me so much. I love,
Actually, I remember now. Like, it was really interesting, because although history wasn't my favorite, I do like certain parts of history and learning about it because I watch National Geographic.
Yeah, she does. She's lame. No, I love doing that.
I'm not nerd.
No. She look. It's the stuff that she chooses to watch. That's what makes her nerdier than the fact that she's watching it.
That's fair. Because I watched How It's Made and
she watched like 2 or 3 different things on the Titanic, bro. Oof, that's
I watched that and then a whole bunch of stuff about Egyptian.
Okay, so yeah. She was talking me about tombs.
Yeah, it was so interesting. But anyway, back on track. It was. Back on track. So, clearly I'm a nerd, but when they were explaining it, they started saying of how people got to religion as part of
like
an explanation life because it was because the idea that the earth was the center, I think it was something like that, where earth was the center was debunked.
No, you're getting to there. Hold on. You're jumping ahead. So because I wanted to try and go through and actually describe the whole scenario.
Okay, go ahead.
So we don't look. You're adding to it. I'm glad you remember that because I do want you to hop in. Okay, but look. So he's describing why people were like so enthralled with religion, but part of it was that it seems silly to look back on it now and say, why were they so caught up in the church? They're clearly doing this, they're clearly doing that. That was wrong. But when you think about that's all people knew at the time. Like if you put yourself in their shoes, you grew up and your grandfather's grandfather knows that the church said this is what happens. You know what I'm saying? So people were comfortable with that. But then when the theory, it ties right into each other. Then when they proved that the earth wasn't flat and that we weren't the center of the universe and shit like that, people started trying to believe in science. But the more that science discovered, the more questions there were.
And so they kind of had to turn back to religion to answer questions because what they described it was they sent people out to get answers.
Yep.
And they couldn't come back like immediately. The answers, they're still searching, honestly.
I was going to say, they're like metaphysical people. You know what I mean? The ideas of people who are, forward in technology and shit. Bro, that's so fascinating.
So they were going to do discoveries, but they didn't have the answers yet. So what do people do? And what do you do when you are met with a situation that you're uncomfortable with, that you know nothing about? You turn back to what's familiar. And so then they turned back to religion, which is not a problem, but it gave them the answers that they needed at the time, and they adapted.
Kind of. See, that's part of why we had issues like the Crusades and shit like that.
Yeah.
And the Orthodox Church versus everybody else, because they refused to acknowledge science, which seems boggling to think about. Like, it's clearly, it's beyond a doubt proven because multiple people across the globe are coming up with the same conclusions. But they're like, no. Because God, you know what I mean? That's such a terrible way to use that shit.
Yeah. And then, but then there's so many different religions that have separate gods that have, or you're damned to hell if you don't believe in the specific God that I tell you that you need to believe in. Like, I don't understand why, in my mind, why those who are Jewish and those who are Christian don't get along. We worship the same person.
Come on now, reading supposedly the same parts of the Bible. So
well, just the Old Testament. But my thing is, we still worship the same person. So, or the same being. So that's making that separation, but still turn to that for comfort.
Exactly.
For distraction.
And that's what led to the phase of Enlightenment, which my mom, she's an English major as well, but she was an English teacher, so she took it a step further. And she will just talk your head off about Ralph Waldo Emerson and all, Henry David Thoreau, excuse me.
And I will zone out.
Yep. But no, the point is that she's enthralled with that because of what Enlightenment represented. I don't even think she's intelligent as hell, but I don't know if she would consciously put those thoughts together about why that's so intriguing. That's when people finally started to think for themselves. And it's crazy to think that wasn't that long ago, realistically speaking, like in the time that humans have been alive. And then because people started separating from the church, now we have the Industrial Revolution popping up. Now we have people fighting for freedom and shit like that. Like things that they were not comfortable doing before because they're following the church's intent. But now people are rebelling in every state of thought. And it's not even like people were doing it. I mean, we have the focus specifically on America because I can't speak on other parts of the globe. But we're the newest country in existence. Of course, we're going through our, like, awareness process slower, you know what I mean? And that was the first time we had come to say, like, oh, I can see with my own two eyes that the sun is moving across the sky. I don't have to believe that the church is saying, like, you know, the chart of the heavens or whatever carries it across. You know what I'm saying? Right. I can see with my... And then, you know, just shit like that. That's why people got more enthralled with science and just... I don't remember how it transitions from there, but then... Oh, no. You brought this up. Thank you. No, you're good. Oh my gosh, I'm just so excited. So then he says, so the people that... The metaphysical energy, the spirit of the people who were sent out to find more, not saying that, like, there were literal people or anything like that, right. But, like, the energy of we need to figure this out, it's coming to an end. As far as where we are right now in 2021, there's not really that much more the technology can do. At this point, we know it's capable to, like, you know, where people are joking that there's a cure for cancer and they just don't want to sell, you know, have it because it's it's more cost effective to treat people. I don't think that's a joke anymore. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Just small shit like that. Just because things are being handled poorly does not mean that the superior alternative doesn't exist. So what other point does technology serve? We're getting to a point where that's not enough. So tell me why there's so many people being obsessed with spirituality and things like that. More than in the 60s when the hippies were doing it. Yeah. Because we're out of things to contemplate. Now we have to figure out why we're here.
We're not only just out of things to contemplate, we're out of distractions. Mm-hmm. And it said that that's literally what technology had became for us. That's what the industrial industry had become for us. But now we have machines that's taking care of everything. We have computers and advanced as far as necessary. Like, you can do everything with a damn phone now. It's a mini computer. Back in my day, I remember when you had to pay 10 cents to call, you know, to send a text message and all that.
And it's also crazy to think about that wasn't really that long ago in the grand scheme of things. You're 25. I was in middle school. You're not even, like... okay, I know she's like an adult, but I feel like we're not even full-grown adults. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so much has changed just in our lifetimes. That's wild. And
it's so weird. Like, I remember when DVDs were new. And
CDs, now, bro. They used to have DVDs, tapes everywhere.
Right. And now, even now, like, CDs are considered old. DVDs are considered old. You gotta do a Blu-ray, and they ain't even doing that anymore.
Blockbuster closed. You know what I'm saying?
So it's just... we're running out. Mm-hmm. And they distracted us because it was new. There was a way to improve it. There was a way to tweak it here, tweak it there. It gave us something to focus on. Mm-hmm. And so now we have to go back to the original question. And that's what it's saying for the second insight.
Yep. And that's like to kind of hint at some of the later insights. That's why so many people are like, so many hardcore religious people are going to say shit like the government is distracting you, blah, 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 blah. They do have a point. Now, some of them are off the deep end. And again, take everything with a grain of salt. Like we said, we have to take even this book with a grain of salt. But that gives me something to think about because it seems like, wow, it literally, we're out of technology. People are becoming more spiritually aware.
One thing I will say, don't take the book and just run with it. Yeah. You take it and you take it into account. You can take it to expand your thoughts to... expand your thoughts. Mm-hmm. But don't take it and say, oh, this is what it is.
Right, that's not even the point of the Bible, if we're being honest.
That's stupid. You take it as your interpretation and you expand on it. This is merely a tool. Disclaimer.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. And just to bring up some quotes from the book, on page 26 of the copy that I have, we've forgotten that we still don't know what we're surviving for. To me, that's the nail on the head of the second insight. Why are we actually here? Like, you started to notice the coincidences of something bigger than us, but we've also had that separation from hardcore religion where it's clearly not some man in the sky. You know what I'm saying? But what is it?
And it's like, you know, and that's why I said that this blends in with the restlessness for me, because it's like, we get the feeling all the time, me and Kaylyn talked about it, like, I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
She said that on the podcast. Yeah.
I deserve more. I feel like I'm not getting enough. This here that I'm at right now is not what I want. I want more. I deserve more. I know I'm capable of more, but what is more?
Exactly. And what would be fulfilling? Because then you have a whole lot of like material shit. Yes, it does help, but that's not what gets your soul juices flowing.
I mean, that's just a distraction itself. And for me, I've never been one to be materialistic, so that wasn't much of a distraction for me in the first place.
And I grew up seeing my parents be materialistic, and that just was a hard turn off. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
the two different perspectives on that. But I remember, like, I feel like I pinch pennies more than everybody else in this family. I'm gonna be honest with you.
That's fair.
I'll cut that out, but
I mean, I grew up I wasn't in complete poverty or anything like that, but I definitely understood the value of $1, the value of a penny. I won't just turn away and be like, oh yeah, that's just a penny. No, pick it up. It's a penny more than what I had before. But I also grew up in a family where it was taught to us very tough not to be materialistic, because everything is what's the word? I can't think of the word. Dispensable.
Okay.
Everything is temporary. A lot of stuff you can get rid of. Now, I do have sometimes I do have a attachment issue sometimes with certain things. I love antique stuff, but realistically, like, I know if I'm in a dire situation, I can get rid of it all. It doesn't matter to me. And getting me on all those stuff, it will be nice and it's cool. I don't like the feeling of being bought. So buying me stuff is not gonna work.
Yeah, man. Some of my favorite songs have lines. I mean, that's kind of corny, I guess, but like some of my favorite songs, like about make money, don't let money make you.
Yeah.
I mean, the line is corny, but there's a point to it. You know what I'm saying?
It needed to be said.
Needed to be said. And with that being said,
you taking my line?
No, we're not quite done yet. I mean, okay. Hold on, so I do want to double back and like just have a whole separate conversation, so I'm just steamrolling through these to get them out the way. Okay, anyway, the third insight is the understanding of energy being everything. So everything is made of a pattern of energy that occupies empty space, and we perceive that as matter. Humans have the ability to see and manipulate this energy. Now, you get a lot of people out here who are like, oh, that crazy new age shit and blah, blah, blah. One of my favorite YouTube channels saw a commercial for it and decided to make an entire video making fun of it. That woo, moving your hands shit. You know what I mean? But I'm here in front of you virtually, my voice is, to tell you that I am a certified Reiki master. And I can't even say that I have any form of bias. Like, it may have formed over time as I've learned to do it. But my first introduction to Reiki, I didn't believe in that shit at all. And it swept me. You know what I'm saying? Things that happened that, again, could not have been a coincidence. I don't even know how to describe it beyond that. There were just things that happened that could not have been coincidence. Period. You know what I mean? And now I believe. But the point of that is that energy is literally everything. And you'll hear people like, oh, I can see auras, I can touch auras, I'm clairaudient, I'm clairsentient, clairvoyant, whatever. Maybe because you don't like the idea of those things, you're going to hard deny it. But those things exist. They're real. They're not superpowers because they're things humans are just capable of. You get what I'm saying? They're just powers to be kind of like silly about it, I guess. I feel like that's a very simple way to say it, but like that is still something people are capable of. Khairah and I have had conversations about how she can see shit around the moon. I feel like she can see spirits and shit like that. She can astral project. Yes, those could just be coincidences, but it's the fact that I'm putting a name on something that she already experienced. She had those experiences before she even met me. You know what I'm saying?
What happened realistically, I had been describing the stuff to her for a while and she just never said anything. But the stuff has been happening since I was little. I would see stuff out the corner of my eye, or a lot of times people would just tell me that I had like an old spirit, so they knew that there was something, I guess, special about me, whatever. But the fact that I could look at the sun and just see the center of it and not go blind, I used to do it all the time. I can still do it, but or I can see rings, like she said, rings around the moon. One time we went outside and we both saw it, but I saw double rings and she was like, no, there's only one. or so it's not seeing, oh, there's a ghost going here and there. It's not that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. It's really not. I still don't know the extent of what everything is, but I do catch glimpses of things. I think we had an episode where I talked about seeing a blue light that was inside the room. Mm-hmm. Or there was one time where I felt something actually hit me in the head.
Yeah, man.
That stuff is real. And
she didn't have a name for it. And see, that's the thing to me that stands out. You had experiences that other people have been having for centuries, and they put a name to it, but you've also been experiencing it without knowing any of that.
And side note, and I never mentioned this, I don't know if I told you, but my biological grandmother, she actually could, she was actually a reverend. So, not saying that we are Satanists and all that. She's a reverend. I was raised Christian. Come on.
I mean, I was non-denominational Christian, so they're kind of hippies anyway.
That's fair. I was definitely raised Christian. My dad was Muslim. So I come from a multi-religion, dual religion background, whatever.
Yeah.
But point is, I believe in God, was raised in that way. Mm-hmm. My grandmother, the one who could see spirits, she could talk to them, was a reverend. Mm-hmm. And she got it from her dad, I believe. I think he could hear them. It was something switched around where she could either one could hear and one could hear.
Sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she was more in tune with it. Actually, a story that I've actually never told Kaylyn is the day before she passed, she actually was talking to her daughter, my aunt, and she knew that she wasn't gonna make it through the night. And I told you? Mm-hmm. Okay. I tell her everything, I forget.
Yeah, I do that too, yeah.
So, she knew that she wasn't gonna make it. And her daughter was like, I'll see you tomorrow. She said, no, you won't. And she told her what else she needed to say to her, and she was like, I love you and everything, but no, you won't see me tomorrow. And that kind of tore me up when I heard it afterwards. But I mean, my grandfather did the same thing. He told me when he was dying, he was like sitting there, and he was like, if I told you that I'm sitting right here and there's somebody sitting right across from me telling me exactly what's going to happen, what would you say? Obviously, in my 15-year-old mind, I kind of wanted to be like, oh, that's kind of crazy, but I knew that wasn't the thing that I needed to say. Mm-hmm. And also part of me believed it, and he knew exactly what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So having different backgrounds, and that was actually on my mom's side, my grandfather on my mom's side. So having these backgrounds where they can see, hear, interact with spiritual beings, it was bound to happen. Mm-hmm. And it has been happening to me for a long time. I've had crazy weird dreams since I was younger that I can still remember to this day. Mm-hmm. I would talk to my grandfather about it all the time, and I just took it as, oh, it's just a dream. Oh, I'm just hearing things like
you made them into coincidences,
right? Yeah. I found out or became allergic to bees, and I always had a fear of them. But I actually had a dream about one attacking me when I was younger, before I end up being afraid of them. And so, so that's completely sidetrack.
Yeah.
But the thing is what I was saying is that I've experienced these things, and now I have a word to put to it. And with all that being said, even dreams are a different alternate reality that's full of energy. Mm-hmm. And everything that you experience, seeing the rings around the moon, seeing the shadows in the corner of my eye and all that's energy. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, no. And just to I don't have anything to comment on specifically about what you said, but earlier I was mentioning that we see it in different ways and shit like that. For me, it's always been more of a touchable thing. Mm-hmm. I can't see anything. I even need glasses IRL. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't see that kind of shit. And if I tried, I probably could learn how to, because I've done it by accident before. But I've never, I can't. That's not something I can just naturally do. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because I can touch the fuck out of stuff, you know what I mean?
I can't touch it.
Yeah, she can't, like, tangibly feel energy. Because I say touching because I'm, like, hand-focused. I'm a massage therapist, so can't help it. But that's when you're, like, in a room and you feel like you're being watched, or you feel the skin on, or you feel the hair on your skin rising and shit like that. That's all your body sensing energy and shit. Now, some people are, again, better at some shit than others, but
that's what makes the world go round.
I was gonna say, it's also depending on what your preferences are. That's a skill that you can develop just like anything else.
There you go.
Yep. And then I do want to read this quote from page 42. The basic stuff of the universe at its core is looking like a kind of pure energy that is malleable, to human intention and expectation in a way that defies our mechanistic model of the universe, as though our expectations itself causes our energy to flow out into the world and affect other energy systems. That leads into the fourth insight, so I do want to bookmark that as a thought, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But I think I hear so many people say, like, energy flows where attention goes, and they teach me that doing Reiki and shit like that. So I have to be focused on the work that I'm doing with my hands, or I'm not doing anything at all. You know what I'm saying? And to some extent, my experiences, I don't want to describe them and sound like insane because we don't have a listening yet. I'm not trying to scare people away. But the experiences that I've had doing energy work that have truly stood out to me. One time, Khairah asked me, and I had never done Reiki for her or anything like that. She was just willing to support me because I was excited as fuck that I knew what it was, or that I learned it. She was like, can you do Reiki for my sister? She's going into surgery.
Oh.
And that's all she told me.
I forgot about that.
Yep, this was one of the first confirmations aside from, like, my very first instance when I was on drugs.
One thing I do need to say, to point out that's very, very important. Mm-hmm. One, like she said, I didn't say anything about what it was. Kaylyn was nowhere near. She didn't know that the surgery was happening. I was in Oak Park in a basement. You know what I'm saying? And we were in Farmington Hills at Beaumont.
And all she told me was, like, my sister's having surgery today. I just want you to do Reiki for her. And I'm like, okay, I got you. So in my mind, I have to completely. It's harder now because I don't meditate as often. But I was meditating a lot back then, so I just completely blanked out my mind and then pictured her body like as if she was a 3D render, so I can move it in whatever direction I feel like, because it's just, I made it up. But I specifically chose to have her laying down because you said it was surgery. So then I'm going through and doing what Reiki is for most of her body, and then when I get to around, like, torso area, my back started hurting, like, my physical actual back started hurting, and I was like, oh, that's weird. I kept going, didn't feel anything else, like, nothing noteworthy or anything like that. So then I went back to the back. I sent a whole lot of energy there, and I was just doing, again, what Reiki is. And then when I text Khairah afterward, I was like, okay, so my back felt weird, but, like, other than that, I think everything's going to be fine. She's going to be okay. And then hours later, Khairah tells me what the surgery was actually for, and it was spot on.
So, just so you know, my sister had to get a breast reduction. Side note, it grew back. She is at a J.
Teeny.
Oh, exactly.
Right.
But she's working out, so she's gonna try and lose some of it.
Okay.
But she had to get a breast reduction. It was starting to really, really affect her back. She, on her dad's side, or actually on my mom's side too, they are very, very well endowed in the breast area.
Testicles.
Those was my mom called them over the shoulder. No, that's what she called bras. Never mind.
Okay. Over the shoulder boulder holders. Yeah, that's right.
So she was naturally like an L-ish, maybe a little bit bigger than. No, she was at L. Something like that.
Fucking
super
insane.
Huge.
You're right.
This is a 5-foot girl, little short.
Itty bitty shorter than me. I'm short.
Yeah.
With just all titty meat.
Just
had to like lean the seat back when she drives.
She was starting to get a hump on her neck from like leaning forward, but she couldn't help it. And we were like, Lauren, you gotta stand up straight. And she was like, I can't. And her back was really hurting, and we kept trying to put off the surgery because they kept saying, oh, it could be possible that it come back. But other people was like, no, it never came back. And it came back, I mean grow. And but she had just turned 18. She wasn't done growing. But she really, really wanted it. And I was scared, obviously, because I'm a worrywart.
Yeah, it's your sister.
That's my baby. And so she had to get the breast reduction surgery. So I told Kaylyn I just needed her to pray for her, do Reiki for her. And when she told me, I was like, how the hell did she know that she had back problems? And I was like, yeah, it was a breast reduction. It was affecting her back. And I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. How did she know that? But she could feel it through the energy.
Through the energy, because energy is everything. And then me being a dumbass, when I was in massage school, I was up there all day. Even I scheduled my classes poorly or some shit like that. So I didn't have time to like go home, do nothing. I was just up there. I had like maybe 30 minutes to do like go for a walk or some shit like that. So I was like, let me go meditate outside. And I'm like, if energy is everything, can I influence the weather? Now, maybe if I really was doing like magic or some shit like that, like maybe, but just me and my little energy field barely meditating once a week. Absolutely not. Because I don't have that understanding that's necessary to manipulate energy in an efficient way. And that's what's interesting about the example he used for the third insight. They have a research garden at some point in Peru where people... Oh, we didn't tell the story.
It's okay. You tell it now.
Yeah, okay. Well, no. I meant... Okay, so for transitioning into the second insight, or into the third, they land the plane and they get in separate taxis. They have different hotels, but then the main character, he just feels like something is off. And he thinks someone is following him. So he asks his taxi driver to take him back to the other guy's hotel, and as soon as he gets out, people start shooting.
And the guy runs out and tells him to run.
Yep, and then they end up getting split up, and as far as we know, he might be dead, captured, whatever. We don't know what's going on. So then we meet another guy with a similar first name, but I think they just call him Will instead of the other guy is by his last name. We don't need to mention that now, at least.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but So this guy is like, oh, you've been learning about the manuscript, blah, blah, blah. He can tell because there's a certain energy that you carry once you have a certain awareness of things. So he's like, well, I can take you to somewhere where they can explain the third insight. Let's go to these research gardens. So they get there, and people are basically putting their intention, like, you know how people talk to plants, but in reality, they're doing energy work. So when you sit and give something your full attention, you're influencing the way the atoms within it are going to move on a scientific level, because everything changes when it's being observed, right? Mm-hmm. So if you sit and give all that attention to a plant, plants are kind of like, because they're still living beings, right? They're organisms. They're like cats, where cats are going to show you their good side, you know what I mean? Or like they're going to make their cute faces, puppies and shit do that, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, even humans, like when you are interacting with people, like, and I tell people this all the time, I'm very quiet and reserved to myself, but if you get to know me, you can't get me to shut up.
Yeah, man.
And that's the energy
when you
thing.
have attention, yeah, you just tend to want to flow into that more and the self that you want to be because you're being fed energy. Plants do the same thing. So imagine a plant doing its plant business to the fullest of its potential. Imagine that being something that you consume, and then you're eating the energy of a plant that was at its fullest potential.
Yeah, because it's showing off for you, and then now you get to reap the benefits.
I was going to say, and then it's still a cycle. It's a small cycle because all of this is about a huge story, you know what I mean? But it's a small cycle because you eat the plants that have now been beefed up, so you get even more energy that you can then give to the plant, so on and so forth. And I thought that was fascinating because I already learned a little bit about what energy is. And one of my favorite examples, I forgot to bring this up earlier. There's part of a reason I collect a lot of rocks. And that's because they have their own energy signatures too, because they're part of the earth, and the earth has its own vibration. So I can hold a crystal and tell which direction is its polar north because they have energy centers. Mm-hmm. I think that's so fascinating. But if you apply the same thing to... What was my point? I don't remember what I was trying to get at, but for me at least, I know that's part of, like, I've always collected rocks. It's like, again, a small coincidence. I've always collected rocks. I've always had them around me, little boxes of them, or like spend like $5 to get a little sack of them at, like, you know, the zoo or some shit like that. I've always done that. And then all of a sudden I learned how to do, manipulation of energy. I got it back. Yep. All right. But as I got into doing energy work, things just made sense. The same way sometimes people need to say, oh, God did this, this, and this, or he forgave me for this. For me, it was, this seems too much of a coincidence. You know what I'm saying? Just small things like that. I have such a fascination with rocks, could never explain it. As soon as I felt the energy of one, it didn't feel brand new. My awareness of it felt brand new, but like the feeling, the energy of the rock didn't feel like, whoa, I've never done this before. You know what I mean? And that was so cool. So to think that I could do that on purpose, or do it to a plant, or the fact that you do tend to do stuff like that with everything you interact with, that was mind-blowing.
And then I think I don't know if I'm recalling it correctly, but I think they mentioned it in the story, like how you meet somebody and you be like, I feel like I've met you before, or you just click. That's the energy thing. In one example they used, a girl, he was standing next to a girl, and there was a lot of attraction going on in there, and she could feel it to the point where it made her a little bit uncomfortable, where she made an excuse to leave. Even on that level, that's the interaction with energy. Kaylyn said that I've done it unintentionally, where I would, if I was in a really, really bad mood, I kind of just let it expel out and just into everybody, into the whole, and change the whole atmosphere. But that's what we all do. If I'm in a good mood, I can, from what I'm told, I can come in a room and then just expel really, really good energy and change the whole atmosphere of the room too. No, I don't do it intentionally. Don't know how I'm doing it, but that's what it is. When you I keep stuttering over my words, and that's irritating me. But when you walk into a room, where you see someone walk into a room, and everyone looks at that person, or everyone can feel that person's, or they say aura. This person just feels like a good person. This person has charisma. You know, we often explain it in that way. That's energy. They are manipulating the room.
Yep, and it does get into more detail. We're going to try and keep this just to the first 3 insights, but it goes into way more detail about that. I think it is the 7th. It might be the 8th, but a lot of this stuff loops back around, because I don't know if Khairah's gotten to this part quite yet. I think you did, because you're at 4. Yep, so when he's leaving the research facility, he happens to catch her eye again, because they have unfinished business. And of course they're not going to leave the book like that, so they get back to that unfinished business in the 8th insight. And that's all I'm going to spoil. Yeah, I was going to say, she's okay with spoilers, but I cannot have that for this book, because it dulls the impact of it, especially now that I know you're not, like, you know, entrenched in it. Because you said it took you out reading the 2nd insight.
Only temporarily, and then I was immediately drawn back in, because when I came and talked to you about it and was like, oh my god, it's so good, I had just finished the 2nd insight. Okay. And I was like, just kind of babbling all over everywhere. Don't get me started on a book. Like, I will get really, really excited. I'm that much of a nerd. I just bought 15 books today. Yeah, so
you just gotta read it. I'm glad you did.
And I have probably like over 400 books in collections. I will not get rid of any of them, so don't ask. But and then I went back and started reading more, and then I had to stop because I had to do work, and then I just kind of got out of the loop of it and just kept looking back like, oh, I want to finish that. Oh, I want to finish that.
And that's why I made it technically homework. Yeah.
If you make it homework, I'm not going to do it, so don't say that.
Well, you have to do it for the podcast. So.
But I'm not going to call it homework.
You don't have to.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. My shit-eating grand.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, okay, so then I also wanted to go through... The 3rd insight's kind of beefy, so I was hoping it would take up a good chunk of time. I'm actually going to have to pause the audio because my Duolingo alarm is going to go off soon. And we're getting about 50 minutes. I'm just going to... I don't like saying the actual time because it's still moving and that bothers me so much. But anyway, the point is, we're going to pause. And then we'll come back and go dive into the actual, like, teaching of how to feel energy of the 3rd insight.
Okay.
We'll be right back. Alright, we're back. So, the teaching part of the 3rd insight... The quote that I pulled out from that on page 44 is, the perception of beauty of any kind is a barometer for telling each of us how close we are to actually perceiving this energy. This becomes clear because once you observe the energy, you realize it's on the same continuum as beauty. I thought that was really interesting because there's definitely been times like I was walking a lot in 2019 and I was just seeing a lot of shit that I'd never seen around, you know, my neighborhood and shit like that. And I'm a photographer, so I would stop and take pictures of it, or like I didn't give a fuck if people were driving past or staring at me, or if I was in somebody's yard and they're like on the porch or some shit like that. If I find something I like, I'm just gonna take a picture of it. But then there would be times where I would come home from that and I've been walking for too long and I like maybe didn't drink enough water or some shit, and I would just lay down and I felt like I could see an outline around everything. You know what I mean? And it was kind of like maybe just a different color, or like, you know, with those heat mirage waves and shit. It kind of looked like that sometimes, like just weird shit. And I was like, I don't know if I'm actually experiencing this or it's just because I didn't drink enough water. You know what I mean? Whatever. But hearing it described in the book, I was on the verge of seeing energy just because my guard was down and because I had been appreciating things on my walk. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And again, I thought that was fascinating because I can kind of, having those instructions, I can kind of sit and like try and focus on something beautiful. Like I took an orchid from my job because it was falling apart anyway, and this one was really pretty. And I didn't know that orchids had like peach fuzz. Wild. Yeah, man. It's been really fascinating to just sit and stare at shit. But point was that I've started doing that more now to strengthen the ability to see energy in myself, because unlike Khairah, that's not something I can just naturally do. And if she did this practice, like the second part of it is, if you're trying to see the energy of a person, start with yourself and try and see the energy between your hands. I can do that pretty quickly just because I have a lot of energy in my hands, and because I'm really, like I said earlier, I love my hands. These are my little portals, you know what I mean? But for Khairah, she would have to probably look at my hands because there would be so much energy, and then also because she's not confident in using her vision that way.
That's true. Cause see, the thing is I guess because you said naturally see a lot of like the beauty a lot, then it doesn't seem abnormal to me. So I don't recognize the difference between dull and or I guess normal and accentuated. But I guess fun fact thing is that I actually don't have a lot of energy in my hands. A lot of it is released out. So it's harder for me to see it in my hands. Learned that from Kaylyn because she did Reiki on me, and I kept
like pushing the shit out.
Yeah. I'm trying to stop. But anyway.
I was gonna say, just stay grounded. It'll be alright. But yeah, so I would be more than willing to let you use my hands as an example, because I always have a lot of energy pushing out these bitches. But that's also another thing, like being able, I talked about this in the What Does Energy Feel Like episode, where for me, it kind of, I can like tangibly feel something just above the skin of my hand, because it's, you know how you never really touch anything? Have you ever heard anybody say that? I don't know if it's not technically true, but like you're never, the full force of your molecules is never coming in contact with any one thing. It's the outer edge, and that just happens to have your nerves and shit on it.
Okay.
Right. Technically speaking. But if you never come in contact with anything, then you're never really coming in contact with the air either. So that is still something that you can manipulate in a way. And again, I could just be crazy, so I don't want to get into like,
she's nuts. I'm just joking.
Is she nuts? No, she's insane. Yeah, it's an Eminem line. Anyway, yeah, I feel like I want to really get into what energy feels like, but I feel like there's no sane way to do that, so I'd have to make sure that, like, you know, we're cultivating the right audience before I dive deep into that.
So we can revisit.
We can revisit. But definitely having this third insight helped me better conceptualize, there we go, how I interpret energy for myself. And like, you know, I already had some of the language for it because I took a bunch of classes while I was in massage school, and I had my own Reiki teacher, shameless plug, I might put her link in the bio.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, Arletha Guzman, thank you. But yeah, so Garcia, I'll just fuck it, just cut it out, shameless plug. Anyway, I don't know if I said her name right. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna do it again.
Her name is Arletha.
I know her first name is Arletha, so I'll just cut out the rest.
Okay.
Leave it
Fair
there.
enough.
Yep.
That was one thing I wanted to say, because I can understand where you may, or people may not be able to relate on looking at other things, but we look at people a lot. So, and I think they use the example in the book, but if you notice how you see people eyes, and then you notice that it's vibrantly beautiful, more beautiful this time, or it's just like, oh, that's just a interesting shade of brown, like it just seems more vibrant. I've seen that's happened a lot, where I've seen that, and it's just like, why is that so intriguing to me? That's seeing the energy in, or the beauty and energy
in the person,
So there you go.
Yeah, but see, a lot of people misinterpret that, especially because a lot of people are lustful. I'm no shame to that. Hey, get what you gotta get, man. Get it how you live. That's what I was trying to say. I like that phrase. But anyway, because I've been there, I just had enough. And for me personally, that's not the wave anymore. But I was also out here acting wild for like 6 years. So anyway, point was, I'm now at a point where I can recognize that sometimes my air quotes attraction to people is more of just seeing the beauty of them on an energetic level. And the eyes really, like, the eyes are the window to the soul or whatever, but I really, those are one of my favorite features of people anyway. So, like, especially during the pandemic where that's all I can see, I'm having a hard time being like, your eyes are just pretty. Like, I can't even see the rest of your face. That's so off topic, but, like, had to be said.
For me, I made a joke about I am lustful, but that's not it. I don't want it to be confused as where I'm just lusting after everybody that has beautiful eyes. No, I know the difference. And because I grew up with it, because my siblings and my grandfather specifically, his eyes changed color a lot. Not from blue to black or anything like that, but different shades of brown. And my dad had hazel eyes, and so there was one time specifically, and actually it happened with my own eyes. I looked in the mirror, and normally I see the brown, it just looks normal to me, and then there was one time where it just seemed like it was more vibrant, there was more red in it. And I've noticed that with my siblings, and so I noticed that with other people. No, that don't mean that I'm attracted to you, it just means that you have really beautiful eyes.
More vibrant. I can see the energy in you.
Or like when people have a glow and you be like, oh, you're glowing, you must have like whatever.
And my friend just had a baby and she looks so good, man. She just looks so
energy,
happy.
The beauty of the energy radiating off of you.
Yeah, wow.
There you go.
Whoop whoop. Shameless plug. She's got a headband company. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's like K Threads or something like that. But shameless plug. Please buy some stuff.
Link in description.
Yep. Check that out. Also, her name is also Kaylyn. Just in case that somehow throws anybody off. She doesn't look anything like me. But she looks so happy right now. And I think you guys should share in that also. So make sure you like up her page. Anyway, she's going to be like a mommy influencer. I don't even think she's trying to. But like, she posts a lot of shit on her Instagram that's like, oh, okay. I can see what she'd be good at.
I'm cool with that.
Yeah, man. Anyway, I don't remember what I was saying before that.
Me either.
Oh, you were talking about the glow of people.
Oh, that was just last minute thing.
Yeah, no, that made sense. And then that still ties into the fact that, like, energies and everything, and the more you get to appreciate it, the easier it is to tap into it in general. So, like, when I was at my peak, and again, it's not a very high peak, it's just, I would say it was above average. I was meditating at least once a week for 10 minutes. I had locks. Like, I really believe in the Native American proverb that your hair is your soul, or like your extension to it. Because I couldn't, like, my senses felt dull when I cut them out. You know what I mean? And I only cut off. It was a weird experience. But I definitely think to some extent that helps open up your perception. Anyway, point was, I was doing all that. I don't even think I was smoking at that point. I was walking a lot, spending a lot of time outside. I could feel energy in everything. Even getting a tattoo and stuff like that. It was just such a tangible thing for me that I was like, where do I go from here? Like, what do I do with this? And I wish I'd had the Celestine Prophecy back then, because it's possible, and they don't really address it within the Third Insight like that, but you can get stuck at an insight. You can go backwards. You can like have a whole.
They actually mentioned it in the third insight.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was that one or not.
So they say it's your choice to move forward, to progress forward. Mm-hmm. And if you decide you want to stop at any point or whatever. And he said specifically the people who chose to or chooses to work at that specific research facility and just stay there, although they had copies of the manuscript and they recognize that there's more out there, they focus solely on that. And he said that's because they want to choose to stay there, and so they're stuck. They don't know or can't recognize. Actually, it's what leads into the fourth one, so I do have to touch on it briefly, where he noticed he was able to see the energy. He was able to see competing energy between two people who were having an argument. Mm-hmm. The one person that he had learned the third insight from, and another person who didn't believe in the, what do you call it, the googly moogly, mm-hmm. the energy stuff. Mm-hmm. And they were having an argument about if the research was actually academic and all of that. And so he recognized, he saw the competing energy and was like, what is that? And why can't she see it if she knows that energy exists? And he's like, because she's stuck, and because mm-hmm. she chooses to stay in this specific state because she feels that this is most important.
And in reality, there's nothing wrong with that, because you still need people like this. The author, his journey is to chug through all of the insights, but if they hadn't stayed where they were at, who would have been there to teach it to them?
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's still important. And I feel like a lot of people who are on the new age wave and shit like that, specifically people on YouTube, because that's the only platform I interact with like that, but people seem so like, oh, get to enlightenment, achieve this, achieve that. That's not everybody's goal. That's not everybody's role in life. You know what I mean? Some people are meant to be teachers at any of those waypoints, because there again are 9 insights and we're only on the 3rd, and there's an entire group of people who are putting all their energy into perfecting the knowledge of that particular insight.
I mean, even going all the way back to the first one, his friend that told him about the first insight, although she was kind of intrigued to learn about the other ones, it really wasn't her priority. Mm-hmm. And she went back to her regular life. She was like, I felt like this would be something you would be interested in. It did interest me. You do what you do with it what you will. And that's what it was. And
no spoilers, but she does not show back up in the rest of the book. You know what I mean? That was literally her only role within the story. So some other people come back, but I can't say who.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's one of the research people.
Well, I mean, we expected that, though, because we talked about the unfinished business.
I didn't say that. Oops.
Well, no, but I read that in the third insight. That is in the third insight.
Well, I know. I just meant, okay, because it might have to be 2 episodes just because of how we got to talking today, but the 8th insight, boy, that is a lot to unpack. It covers
we will get
5 to 10 different concepts. Like, they all relate to each other for real, because but trying to summarize it, like you said, that doesn't have like a one word, you know.
Yeah.
And that I had to make my own whole document for that. Okay. Yeah, we get into that. The last quote that I wanted to read from this insight is on page 51. The reality of it is new to everyone, but the interesting thing is that this energy is what science has always been looking for. Some common stuff underlying all matter. So, to bring that back into what the second insight actually was, the full contextualizing of history, what were we searching for? Why are we here? We're here to learn about energy, to be beings of energy.
Because we are beings of energy.
Because we are. And... man, I don't know. I'm kind of tongue-tied. Like, I feel like, to me, some of this is so clear. Maybe just because of the circumstances that I've had, or, like, the shit that... because I technically have gone through, like, a bit of a spiritual journey. I'm way more spiritual now than I was 5 years ago. I'll use that as a good marker. And I never would have aimed to be here. You know what I'm saying? This is not ever anything that I had intended for my life when I was, like... you know, when people have you plan your entire shit out when you're in high school... this is nothing that I had anticipated. And of course it was always going to be that way, but who knew that I was going to go on this particular path where now I can touch energy and like, for the most part, people are aware of what I'm doing. That's another thing that's constantly validating for me. They all feel it in different ways. Like, Khairah just kind of gets cold or might feel like a little breeze.
Okay. Sometimes I may get a little bit more warm because I stay cold. Like I actually, the energy in where I'm staying right now has been a little bit different because typically I have to wear 3 shirts and like maybe 2 to 3 pairs of pants to stay warm, just even without going outside in the wintertime. And I haven't had to do that. So it makes it easier for when I feel her energy work.
Well, yeah, I think it's because you're more grounded now. Like, you just have more of an opportunity to be in your actual energy and in your own energy.
Okay, that's fair.
However, whatever state you need to be in. Yeah, I don't know if I had anything else to comment on. We even touched on the 4th insight, so I hope you guys are intrigued about that.
Little drop.
Right, little drip, little drop. Just trying to see how humans compete for energy. And that's also something that's fascinating enough to, I think, warrant its own entire episode. We might tie that into the 5th, but the 5th is a little weird. So, yeah, we'll see how Khairah feels when she gets there.
Oh, Lord.
Yep. All right, and I think that's going to wrap up our episode for today. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter, Kaylyn was here _
And, of course, now I have Twitter. So, Twitter and Instagram, Khairah _ is _ here. Or hype. I can't say it right today.
Today's a lazy day. We're technically, like I said, we're recording 2 days after we were supposed to. And she had to actually work today instead of doing it on an off day.
Whatever.
No, and then she hung out with her sister. Like, today's been a long day. It's late. We haven't even eaten yet. Didn't even get that minimum boost of energy before bed. So, yeah. Today's been a long day. Anyway.
So, follow us on our Instagram and Twitter.
Right. Follow us on social media. Clearly, I'm tired. I'm rambling like shit, boy. Anyway, I think that's it for today.
So, with that being said, Khairah is here.
Kaylyn was here.
And thanks for listening.
Bye.